The alarm screamed through the Galactic Council's monitoring station like a dying animal. Ambassador Tillith's crystalline body flickered with colors that meant fear and urgency as she stared at the display screen. The distress signal came from the Varan Union, a peaceful species that mined asteroids on the edge of known space. They were dying. The message was simple and terrible. The Chromath swarm had found them. Everyone in the council chamber knew what that meant. The Chromath were a nightmare species that ate entire worlds. They were not individuals but pieces of one giant mind that spread across space like a disease. They had destroyed 47 civilizations in the last 100 years. They did not negotiate. They did not stop. They only consumed. Tillith brought the emergency to the full council. The holographic displays showed the Varan colony under attack. Thousands of bioships surrounded their small mining stations. The Varan had no military, no weapons beyond tools meant for breaking rocks. They were builders and artists, not fighters. In 3 days, maybe 4, they would all be dead. The council argued for hours. The problem was simple but impossible to solve. Every major fleet was fighting somewhere else. The Valtorian armada was defending the outer rim. The Centauran battle groups were hunting Chromath splinter cells in 3 other sectors. The Luminari had ships, but they were weeks away at best speed. Nobody could reach the Varan in time. Junior Counselor Vex stood up. He was young by council standards, only 200 years in his position. His species breathed methane and looked like floating jellyfish to human eyes. When he spoke, his voice translator made his words sound harsh and direct. "Send the signal on all frequencies," Vex said, "including the quarantined channels." The chamber went silent. Everyone knew what he meant. The quarantined channels reached Sol System. Earth. The humans. Ambassador Tillith's colors shifted to dark purple, the shade of horror. "You cannot be serious. They are Deathworlders. Their planet is rated Class 12 hazard. Their own moon causes ocean waves that can destroy cities. Their atmosphere has oxygen, which is literally poison to most species. They have predators that hunt for fun, not just food. And the humans are the apex predator of that world," another counselor added. "They are pursuit hunters. They chase prey until it dies from exhaustion. They are only 47 standard years space capable. They are violent, unpredictable, and dangerous." Vex did not back down. "They are also the only ones close enough to help. Their 3rd expeditionary fleet is in the outer colonies region. They could reach the Varan in 3 weeks if they push their engines hard. If they even respond," Tillith said quietly. "Why would they risk their lives for aliens they have never met? Why would anyone?" The debate continued, but desperation won in the end. The Varan were going to die unless someone helped them. The council had no other options. They sent the distress call to all frequencies, including the ones that reached the quarantined Sol system. 3 days later, on the bridge of the UESS Indomitable, Commander Sarah Chen read the translated message. Her ship was the flagship of humanity's 3rd Expeditionary Fleet, currently mapping star systems near the frontier. The distress call made her stop everything. She called her senior officers to the briefing room. Captain Marcus Webb arrived first. He was older than Chen, with gray hair and scars from the Titan colony wars. He had the look of someone who had seen too much death but kept going anyway. "What do you think?" Chen asked him after everyone heard the message. Webb studied the data. "The Varan have 72 hours, maybe less. The Chromath outnumber any rescue force 20 to 1. We are 3 weeks away at maximum burn, which will damage our engines. The council says they cannot send help." He paused. "This is not our fight, Commander." Chen looked at the holographic display showing the Varan colony. Somewhere down there, millions of beings were preparing to die. They were recording their history, their culture, their stories, hoping someone would remember them after the Chromath finished eating their world. "How fast can we get there if we push the engines past safety limits?" she asked. The chief engineer, a woman named Rodriguez who was not related to the Lieutenant Rodriguez on the ground forces, did quick calculations. 3 weeks if we override the safeties and run the reactors at 115%. The engines will need complete rebuilding afterward. We might lose 1 or 2 ships to mechanical failure. And our odds if we engage the Chromath at 20 to 1? Webb did not hesitate. We lose. We might buy the Varan a few extra days, but we lose. Chen was quiet for a long moment. Everyone in the room knew what she was thinking. The smart choice was to send the message to Earth Command and wait for orders. The safe choice was to acknowledge that this was not humanity's responsibility. The logical choice was to calculate the odds and realize this was suicide. She made her decision. All ships will prepare for immediate acceleration to the Varen system. Override all engine safeties. I want maximum burn in 30 minutes. Commander, one of the junior officers said carefully, we will be risking 8,000 lives. The Council has not asked for our help. Chen looked at him. The Council did not ask because they think we are too dangerous and stupid to trust. They are half right. We are dangerous, but not to people who need help. She stood up. We did not crawl out of Earth's gravity well just to ignore people dying when we can do something about it. Maybe we fail. Maybe we all die trying, but we try, the fleet redirected. 18 ships, everything humanity could spare from the region. Destroyers, cruisers, frigates, and the carrier Indomitable itself. 20,000 sailors, marines, and fighter pilots. It was not enough to win, but it was everything they had. As the engines pushed past safe limits and the ships accelerated toward the Varen system, Chen sent a message back on the same frequency the distress call had used. It was short. Hold on. We are coming. On Varan 4, Administrator Quellen received the message 3 days later. He did not understand it at first. The translator had trouble with the human language. When it finally made sense, he did not know whether to feel hope or more fear. The Chromath were already attacking the outer settlements. The Varen fought with mining lasers and improvised explosives, buying time for the young ones to reach the deep bunkers. They were losing badly. Every hour the Chromath got closer to the colony core. Ambassador Telith contacted Quellen directly through a secure channel. Her colors were complicated, mixing warning with something that might have been shame. Help is coming from the humans. They are the Deathworlders from Sol System. I must warn you, they are not like us. They are comfortable with violence in ways that will disturb you. They do not calculate odds the way rational species do. They are coming to help you, but they may all die trying, and they know it. Quellen looked at the tactical display showing the Chromath forces surrounding his world. He looked at the shelters packed with frightened civilians. He looked at the defense forces armed with tools never meant for war, preparing to die buying minutes for others. Ambassador, Quellen said quietly, anyone willing to die for strangers is welcome here. No matter how they fight. The communication ended. Quellen went back to organizing the defenses, knowing they only had to hold for 3 more weeks. 3 weeks against an enemy that never stopped, never tired, and never showed mercy. In space, the human fleet burned toward them at speeds that made the ships shake and groan. In the engine rooms, crews worked around the clock keeping the reactors from exploding. In the barracks, Marines checked their weapons and armor. In the ready rooms, fighter pilots ran simulations of battles they were not supposed to survive. And on the bridge of the Indomitable, Commander Sarah Chen watched the countdown timer. 3 weeks. It felt like forever. It felt like no time at all. The Chromath did not know they were coming. They were about to learn what a death world breeds when it decides someone needs saving. The Indomitable shook constantly as it pushed through space faster than it was designed to go. In the engine room, warning lights flashed red across every panel. Chief Engineer Rodriguez wiped sweat from her face and ignored them all. The reactor was running at 118% capacity now, 3 points higher than Commander Chen had ordered. The engines screamed like tortured metal, which was exactly what they were. How long can we maintain this? Her assistant asked, shouting over the noise. Rodriguez checked the readings again. 2.5 weeks, maybe. After that, the reactor casing will develop fractures and we will have a containment breach. And then we all die in a ball of fusion fire. She smiled grimly. So let us hope we get there in 3 weeks exactly. Throughout the fleet, similar conversations happened on every ship. Engineers pushed systems past breaking points. Medical teams prepared for casualties. Combat units trained in spaces too small for proper drills. Everyone knew the odds. Everyone came anyway. Dr. Yuki Tanaka gave her briefing to the command staff on the 3rd day of the journey. She was the fleet's xenobiologist, responsible for understanding alien life forms. The Chromath file made for terrible reading. They are a hive mind species, she explained, bringing up holographic images that made several officers look away. They are part biological, part mechanical, all nightmare. Each Chromath unit is connected to every other unit. When one dies, it shares the experience of death with the entire swarm. This means they learn and adapt in real time. Every tactic we use will only work once, maybe twice. Captain Webb studied the images. Weak points? Their coordination is also their vulnerability. If we can disrupt their communication or eliminate command nodes, the lesser units become confused. But their command ships are heavily defended and usually at the center of the swarm. So we have to fight through hundreds of bioships to reach the target that might, if we are lucky, disrupt their coordination long enough for us to kill more of them before they adapt again. Tanaka nodded. Essentially, yes. Chen looked at the tactical projections. 400 Chromath bioships according to the last scan. 18 human vessels. The computer calculated their survival odds at less than 3%. It was a generous estimate. What about the Varen? Chen asked. Can they fight? No, Tanaka said simply. They are a peaceful species. They have never developed military technology. Their philosophy centers on harmony and cooperation. They use tools to build, not destroy. Then we need to hold long enough for them to evacuate, Webb said. How many? 43,000 on Varen 4. Another 18,000 scattered across mining stations in the system. The numbers sat heavy in the room. 61,000 lives depending on a rescue force that could not possibly win. On Varen 4, Administrator Quellen watched the Chromath advance through the colony's sensor network. The outer settlements were gone now, consumed completely. The bioships had landed warrior forms, creatures that looked like someone had mixed an insect, a shark, and a tank. They tore through defensive positions like they were not there. The Varen fought anyway. Mining supervisors used industrial lasers to cut through Chromath armor. Engineers rigged demolition charges to collapse tunnels. Ordinary civilians threw rocks when they had nothing else. It did not matter. For every Chromath they killed, 3 more took its place. Quellen organized the evacuation of the nursery habitats where the young ones lived. The Varen life cycle was complex, with offspring requiring special environmental conditions for their first 10 years. The nurseries were deep underground, protected by layers of rock. They were also impossible to evacuate quickly. We need more time, the head nursery keeper told him. At least 5 more days to move everyone to the deep shelters. Quellen looked at the tactical display. The Chromath would reach the nursery level in 3 days. Maybe 4 if the defense forces sacrificed themselves buying time. You will have it, Quellen promised, knowing he was probably lying. That night, another message came from the approaching human fleet. The transmission was clearer this time, the translators working better with more data. It was a simple question. What do you need? Quellen almost laughed. What did they need? They needed an army. They needed weapons. They needed a miracle. He sent back the truth. Time. We need time to evacuate the young ones. Can you give us that? The response came back faster than light-speed communication should allow. Whoever was on the other end must have answered immediately. Yes, 1 word. Simple and absolute. Quellen did not know whether to feel relief or guilt. These humans were coming to die for his people. The best he could offer was to make sure their sacrifice meant something. Aboard the Indomitable, Chen reviewed the message with her staff. They need time. That is what we give them. Every second we keep the Chromath busy in space is 1 more second those children have to reach safety. How long do we need to hold? Webb asked. 5 days from when we arrive. Probably 7 to be safe. The tactical officer, a young woman named Kim, ran the numbers. Commander, the average engagement time between Council fleets and Chromath swarms is 42 minutes before tactical withdrawal is required. The record for holding position against Chromath forces is 3 hours and 18 minutes, set by the Valtorian Heavy Fleet, and they lost 60% of their ships doing it. We are not the Valtorians, Chen said. We are going to hold for 7 days. How? Kim asked, not challenging but genuinely wanting to know. Chen brought up a file that had no official name. The tactical staff had started calling it Protocol Thermopylae, after an ancient Earth battle. It was a battle plan that did not exist in any Council military database, because no rational species would ever use it. The concept was simple. Most space battles were long-range affairs with ships staying thousands of kilometers apart, exchanging fire with energy weapons and guided missiles. Victory went to whoever could maintain shield integrity longer, or land the first critical hit. It was careful, calculated warfare designed to minimize losses. Protocol Thermopylae threw all of that away. The human fleet would not maintain distance. They would charge directly into the Chromath swarm at close range where shields barely mattered, and armor was everything. They would not fight a battle of attrition. They would fight a brawl, and humans were very good at brawling. "This is insane," Kim said quietly after reviewing the protocol. "We will take massive casualties immediately." "Yes," Chen agreed. "But the Chromath will not expect it. Council species fight to preserve their ships and minimize losses. We are going to fight like we are personally angry at them for existing. The surprise might buy us the time we need." Webb nodded slowly. "Humans have always been good at choosing when to die for something." The fleet continued its burn toward the Varan system. In the mess halls, crews ate their meals and told stories. In the chapels, those who believed in gods asked for strength. In the armories, Marines named their weapons. In the fighter bays, pilots painted designs on their craft. They were all preparing in their own ways for what was coming. On the 8th day of the journey, they received another transmission from the Varan system. This one was not from Administrator Quellen. It was a general broadcast probably meant to be picked up by anyone who might listen. The Varan were recording their history, everything they were, hoping someone would remember them. Chen listened to the first few minutes. Descriptions of their art, their music, their philosophy of living in harmony with the universe. It was beautiful and sad. She turned it off and sent orders to all ships. "Make sure every crew member hears at least part of the Varan broadcasts. I want everyone to know exactly who we are fighting for." The tactic worked. Nothing motivates humans like protecting people who cannot protect themselves. By the time the fleet was 1 week from the Varan system, every sailor, every Marine, every pilot knew about the Varan nurseries and the children hiding in the deep shelters. On day 19 of the journey, the Indomitable's engines started showing serious damage. 3 other ships reported similar problems. They were not going to make the full 3 weeks without something breaking. "Push harder," Chen ordered. "I want to arrive with time to spare, even if the ships fall apart after we get there." They pushed harder. The ships shook more. More warning lights came on. Everyone ignored them. On day 20, they received a final transmission from Quellen. "The Chromath have reached the colony core. We are collapsing the upper tunnels to slow them down. The young ones are almost safe in the deep shelters, but we are out of time. Whatever you are going to do, please do it soon." Chen called all ship captains for a final conference. "We arrive in 2 days. The Varan need us now. We are going to drop out of FTL at combat speed, directly into the middle of the Chromath formation. No pause, no positioning, no careful approach. We hit them immediately and we keep hitting them until they stop moving, or we do. And if we all die in the first hour," one captain asked. Chen smiled, and it was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a predator that had spotted prey. "Then we make that hour count for something. The Chromath have eaten 47 civilizations. Nobody has ever made them pay for it. Time to change that." The fleet prepared for battle. In the final hours before arrival, the ships went silent. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel directly into hell. The Chromath bioships filled the space around Varan 4 like a disease, hundreds of organic vessels that looked like they were grown rather than built. For a moment, both sides simply detected each other, sensors screaming warnings as targeting computers tried to count all the threats at once. Commander Chen did not wait. "All ships execute protocol Thermopylae. Fire everything." The human fleet did not spread out into defensive formations. They did not establish firing lines or create support positions. They charged directly into the center of the Chromath swarm at speeds that would have horrified any Council military observer. It was not tactics. It was controlled rage given direction. The Indomitable led the way, its forward guns opening fire at ranges where most species would still be calculating firing solutions. Railgun rounds moved at significant fractions of light speed, punching through Chromath bioarmor like it was paper. Missile pods launched their full loads at once, filling space with hundreds of warheads. Energy weapons carved burning lines through the darkness. The Chromath responded immediately. The hive mind processed the threat and reacted with the coordination of a single organism. Bioplasma weapons fired back, streams of superheated organic matter that could melt through most ship armor in seconds. Living mines detached from the bioships and moved to intercept the human vessels. The Indomitable took a direct hit on its forward section. The bioplasma melted through 3 decks before the damage control teams could seal the breach. 83 crew members died instantly, vaporized before they could even scream. Alarms screamed across every system. Any Council ship would have withdrawn to assess damage. Chen ordered the ship to accelerate. "Keep firing. Do not slow down." The destroyer Crazy Horse took damage to its reactor. Any other fleet would have evacuated the ship and let it drift. Instead, Captain Yu made a decision that would be talked about for years. He aimed his dying reactor at the largest chromath carrier he could find, evacuated most of his crew, and rammed the bioship at full speed. The explosion lit up the entire system. The carrier vanished in a ball of fusion fire. 6 more chromath ships too close to the blast were torn apart by the shockwave. 78 escape pods launched from the Crazy Horse in the final 60 seconds. 17 crew members stayed aboard, unable to reach pods in time. They rode their ship into oblivion, their last act making sure the reactor detonated at exactly the right moment for maximum damage. The chromath had never encountered anything like this. Council species fought carefully, preserving ships and minimizing casualties. Humans fought like they had taken the battle personally. When weapons ran dry, they used the ships themselves as weapons. When shields failed, they relied on armor. When armor failed, they kept fighting anyway. Fighter Squadron Valkyrie launched from the carrier Indomitable. 24 small craft, each piloted by someone who had volunteered, knowing the survival rate for fighter pilots against chromath swarms was less than 20%. They dove into the mass of bioships like hawks hitting a flock of crows. Lieutenant Sarah Kim led the squadron. She was 26 years old and had been a pilot for 3 years. In the next 4 minutes, she would become the most decorated fighter pilot in human history. She would also die doing it, but that came later. The fighters used tactics that did not exist in Council military databases. They flew in pairs, one pilot drawing fire while the other lined up killing shots. They used the chromath bioships as cover, ducking behind the massive organic vessels and popping out to fire. They accepted damage that would make most pilots eject, patching holes with emergency sealant and continuing the fight. Kim's fighter took a hit that sheared off one wing and destroyed her starboard thruster. She compensated by using her port thruster in controlled bursts, flying in a spiral pattern that should have been impossible to maintain. She lined up 3 more kills before her reactor finally gave out. Her last transmission was simple. Valkyrie lead to all fighters. "Make them remember us." She ejected 1 second before her fighter exploded. The escape pod was recovered 6 hours later. Kim survived with 3 broken ribs, a collapsed lung, and burns across 40% of her body. When they gave her the medal later, she said she was just doing her job. Half of Valkyrie squadron died in the first engagement. The 12 survivors did not retreat. They rearmed, repaired what could be fixed, and went back out. They did this 4 more times during the battle. On the surface of Varan 4, Administrator Quellen watched the space battle through the colony's sensors. He had never seen warfare before. The Varan were a peaceful species, believing that all conflict could be resolved through discussion and understanding. They had no context for what they were watching. The human ships were not fighting a battle. They were fighting a brawl. They took damage that would destroy most vessels and kept moving. They used tactics that seemed designed to maximize chaos rather than minimize losses. They fought like they were angry, not calculating. "Are they winning?" one of the Varan observers asked. Quellen checked the numbers. The humans had lost 3 ships completely destroyed. 4 more were damaged so badly they could barely fight. They had been in combat for 14 minutes. Against 400 chromath bioships, they should have been eliminated in 5 minutes. They were still fighting. More than that, they were advancing. The chromath swarm was actually being pushed back. "I do not know if they are winning," Quellen said quietly, "but they are not losing." A communication came through from the human fleet. It was a priority message on all frequencies. Lieutenant James Rodriguez, commander of the Marine Ground Force, was requesting permission to land. "The space battle is still going," Quellen protested. "It is not safe to land troops." The human response was immediate. "Administrator, the chromath already have forces on your surface. We are not going to wait for the space battle to finish. Where do you need us?" Quellen gave them coordinates for the colony core where the defensive line was collapsing. 20 minutes later, 3 assault shuttles screamed through the atmosphere, taking fire from chromath air defense organisms the entire way down. 1 shuttle was hit and crashed. The other 2 landed hard in the middle of the defensive perimeter. 120 human Marines deployed. Quellen watched them through the security cameras. They looked strange, covered in heavy armor that made them move like machines. They carried weapons that seemed too large for beings their size. Rodriguez himself was young, maybe not even an adult by Varan standards, but he had scars across his face and the look of someone who had seen too much. "Sir," Rodriguez said through the translator, "we are here to get your people out, but you need to trust us. What we are about to do is not going to look like a rescue. The Chromath were already in the colony's lower levels, hundreds of warrior forms that looked like nightmares made flesh. Each one was 2 meters of claws, teeth, and biomechanical augmentation. They killed with efficiency and coordination that came from being pieces of one mind. The Marines went to meet them. Quellen watched the first engagement on the security feeds. He wished he had not. The humans fought in a way that made him physically sick. They used explosive weapons in enclosed spaces. They fired chemical accelerators that tore through organic matter like it was nothing. When Chromath warrior forms got too close, the Marines used blades and even their own fists. One Marine ran out of ammunition and used his empty weapon as a club. When that broke, he pulled out a knife. When a warrior form knocked the knife away, the Marine grabbed the creature's head and twisted until something broke. The Chromath fell. The Marine picked up his knife and kept going. This was what a death world created. Beings who treated violence not as a last resort but as a tool to be used efficiently. Quellen understood now why the Council feared humanity. They did not fight like soldiers. They fought like predators, but they were fighting for his people. That made all the difference. In orbit, the battle was entering its third hour. The Indomitable had lost 2/3 of its point defense systems. The port side was a burning wreck held together by emergency force fields. Engineering reported that the reactor was going to breach in 43 minutes if they did not reduce power. Chen ordered them to increase power. "Give me everything the reactor has. We are not done yet." Captain Webb, commanding the tactical station because the actual tactical officer was dead, looked at her. "Sarah, the ship is going to explode." "I know, but not yet. We need to get to that." She pointed at the tactical display showing a bioship twice the size of any other in the swarm. It was the Queen ship, the command node that coordinated the entire Chromath force. "We have 9 ships left combat capable," Webb said. 4 more that are basically floating point defense platforms. That Queen ship is protected by at least 100 bioships. Then we go through them. Chen opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships form spearhead formation on Indomitable. We are going for the Queen ship. Maximum acceleration, ignore all damage. This is a one-way trip. Make it count. The remaining human ships formed up. They were all damaged. They were all running on failing systems. They were all going to die in the next few minutes. Every captain knew it. Every crew knew it. They did it anyway. The Indomitable drifted through the debris field that used to be a Chromath swarm. Half the ship was gone. What remained was held together by emergency welds, force fields, and the stubborn refusal of the crew to let their vessel die. Medical shuttles moved constantly between the surviving ships, carrying wounded to wherever there was space to treat them. Commander Sarah Chen stood in what used to be the bridge. 3 walls were now open to space, sealed by emergency barriers that flickered occasionally. Half her command crew was dead. The rest were wounded or so exhausted they could barely stand. Her own left arm was in a regenerative cast from where a support beam had fallen during the battle. "Status report," she said, because that was what commanders did even when everything was obviously broken. Captain Webb was gone, died taking out the Queen ship. The new tactical officer, promoted 15 minutes ago when the previous one died at his station, reviewed what was left. 9 ships still have basic function. 4 more are floating wrecks that we are using as medical stations. 5 destroyed completely. Casualty count is 8,214. That is 41% of the entire fleet. By any standard military calculation, it was a disaster. By human standards, it was a miracle anyone survived at all. "And the Varen?" Chen asked. "Colony secure. All civilians accounted for. The Chromath ground forces are eliminated." A pause. "Administrator Quellen is requesting permission to come aboard. He wants to thank you personally." Chen almost laughed. "Thank her for what? For getting 8,000 humans killed in a battle that was not their fight? For destroying half a fleet to save people they had never met? For proving that humans were exactly as crazy as the rest of the galaxy thought? Permission granted. Clear a docking port that still works." 2 hours later, Administrator Quellen arrived on the Indomitable. He had never been on a warship before. The Varen did not build such things. Walking through the human vessel was like walking through a nightmare made real. Every corridor showed damage. Blast marks on the walls, dried blood on the floors, emergency lights flickering. Crew members working on repairs with burns and wounds still visible. The air smelled like smoke, chemicals, and death. This was what war looked like up close. Chen met him in the conference room. the only section of the ship that was still environmentally stable without everyone wearing spacesuits. She looked terrible. Her uniform was torn. Her face was covered in cuts and bruises. She had the look of someone who had not slept in days and would not sleep for days more. "Administrator Quellen," Chen said formally. "Welcome aboard." Quellen tried to find words and failed. "What do you say to someone who sacrificed everything for strangers?" Finally he managed. "Commander Chen, my people owe you a debt we can never repay. You came when no one else would. You fought when the odds were impossible. You lost thousands of your own to save us." Chen shook her head. "We did what anyone should do. You needed help. We could provide it." The math was simple. Simple. Quellen's translator struggled with the emotion in his voice. "Commander, you risked everything on calculations that said you should lose. By any rational standard, this was suicide." "Why?" Chen looked at him for a long moment. "Because 43,000 people were going to die if we did nothing. Because we had the ability to help even if it cost us. Because humans have a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing." She smiled tiredly. "We did something." Before Quellen could respond, alarms sounded throughout the ship. The tactical officer's voice came over the communication system. "Commander, we have multiple ships dropping out of FTL. Council signatures. It is the diplomatic fleet." Ambassador Tillith arrived with an escort of council observers. Her crystalline form flickered with colors that meant shock and disbelief as she surveyed the damage to the human fleet. The numbers from the battle did not make sense. 18 ships against 400. Victory despite losing 5 vessels completely and crippling 9 more. 8,000 casualties out of 20,000 deployed. The meeting happened in the same damaged conference room. Tillith looked at Chen, at the wounded crew members working in the corridors at the makeshift medical bay visible through the open bulkhead. She looked at the data showing what the humans had accomplished. "Commander Chen," Tillith said carefully, "your species violated every principle of sustainable warfare. You spent resources you could not afford to lose. You accepted casualties no rational commander would tolerate. You fought with a level of aggression that borders on insanity." Chen waited. There was clearly more coming. "And you saved 43,000 lives that every calculation said were already dead." Tillith's colors shifted to something the translator could not quite capture. "The Council owes humanity a debt we cannot possibly repay." "We did not do it for a debt," Chen said quietly. "We did it because they needed help and we were the only ones who could get here in time." Quellen, who had been listening silently, spoke up. "Ambassador Tillith, the humans are not what you told us they were. You said they were dangerous, volatile, aggressive." He gestured to where Lieutenant Rodriguez, heavily bandaged and barely able to stand, was helping a Varan child rescue a toy from the rubble through the window. "You were right. They are dangerous to those who threaten the innocent. They are aggressive in defense of those who cannot defend themselves." Quellen turned to face the Council observers directly. "The Varan Union formally requests that humanity be granted full Council membership. Immediately. And if the Council refuses, the Varan will withdraw from the Council and ally with humanity independently." The words fell like bombs in the quiet room. It was the diplomatic equivalent of a declaration. A species was willing to leave the Galactic Council, something that had not happened in 3,000 years, rather than abandon the humans who saved them. Tillith's colors went through a spectrum that had no translation. Shock, consideration, calculation, and something that might have been respect. "The Council will consider this request. Given the circumstances, I believe it will be approved. There is one condition," Tillith continued. "Humanity must submit to Council military doctrine and operational oversight. No more tactical approaches that other species would consider suicidal. No more acceptable risk thresholds that result in 40% casualties." Chen looked at her senior staff. The officers who remained were exhausted, wounded but still standing. They had just fought a battle that should have killed them all. They had saved 61,000 civilians. They had proven that sometimes the impossible just needed someone stubborn enough to try. "I need to consult with Earth Command," Chen said. "This decision is above my authority." The message went back to Earth at light speed. The response took 3 days to return due to the distance. During that time, the human fleet conducted repairs, buried their dead, and helped the Varan begin rebuilding. Marines worked alongside civilians, clearing rubble and establishing temporary shelters. Engineers shared technology for defensive systems. Medics treated Viren wounded with the same care they gave their own. Lieutenant Rodriguez spent most of his recovery time in the Viren nursery, playing simple games with the children who had hidden in the deep shelters during the battle. He did not speak their language well, and they did not speak his, but somehow they communicated anyway. The children showed him their drawings. He taught them card games from Earth. One small Viren named Tillix followed him everywhere, calling him the scary guardian who is not scary. When Earth's response finally came, Chen read it 3 times to make sure she understood correctly. Then she called Ambassador Tillith for another meeting. The United Earth government has reviewed the Council's offer, Chen said formally. We appreciate the recognition. We would be honored to work with the Council as equal partners in defending the galaxy. She paused, but we must respectfully decline the condition requiring us to adopt Council military doctrine. Tillith's colors flashed warning. You understand what this means? The Council cannot accept members who will not follow established protocols. The risk is too great. We understand, Chen said, but we will not apologize for how we fight. We will not let bureaucracy and calculations slow us down when lives are at stake. If that makes us too dangerous for the Council, then we will defend people on our own terms. Quellen stood up. Then the Viren Union withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. We will join humanity in defending those who cannot defend themselves. 2 more Council observers stood. One was from a species called the Ragnari, bear-like beings from a heavy gravity world. The other was a Solian, a species of flying beings who had lost their homeworld to the Chromath 20 years ago. The Ragnari domain also withdraws, their representative said. We remember when the Chromath attacked our colonies. The Council said the risk of sending help was too great. We will stand with those who do not calculate the cost of doing the right thing. The Solian remnant fleet joins as well, the other added. We know what it means to be abandoned by calculations. We will not abandon others the same way. Ambassador Tillith watched her carefully constructed diplomatic meeting fall apart. 4 species, all willing to leave the Council, all because they had seen what happened when someone actually chose to fight for strangers despite impossible odds. The Galactic Council's diplomatic vessel arrived at Viren 4, 6 days after the battle ended. Ambassador Tillith had sent the ship with a full team of observers and analysts. They emerged from faster-than-light travel expecting to find a destroyed colony, and maybe some survivors. What they found instead changed everything they thought they knew about warfare. The debris field told part of the story. Thousands of pieces of destroyed ships, both Chromath and human, floating in orbit around the planet. The scanner readings told another part. Energy signatures from battles so intense they had created temporary radiation zones, impact craters on the surface where ships had crashed or been shot down. Then they detected the human fleet. What remained of it looked like it had flown through a star and somehow survived. The Indomitable was barely recognizable as a warship. Entire sections were missing, replaced by emergency structures. The hull was scorched black in places, melted in others. And yet it was still functional, still maintaining position, still coordinating repair efforts across the other damaged vessels. Chief Observer Vekran, a being whose species had been part of the Council for 8,000 years, reviewed the battle data with growing disbelief. This is not possible, he said to his team. 18 ships against 400. They should have been destroyed in minutes. His assistant pulled up casualty reports. 8,000 human casualties. 41% losses. By our standards, this is an unacceptable disaster. By their standards, Vekran said quietly, they won. They achieved their objective. They saved everyone they came to save. He looked at the data again. They fought with a level of aggression that should have resulted in immediate destruction, and instead they broke an enemy force 20 times their size. The diplomatic shuttle requested permission to dock with the Indomitable. Commander Chen, despite being exhausted and injured, granted it personally. She met them in the conference room that had become the center of command since the bridge was half destroyed. Vekran had reviewed Chen's file before coming. She was 42 years old by Earth standards, relatively young by Council measures. She had commanded the 3rd Expeditionary Fleet for 3 years. Her record showed competence but nothing exceptional. Nothing that explained what had happened here. Then he met her in person and understood. Chen had the look of someone who had been through hell and walked out carrying everyone she could save. Her uniform was clean but showed signs of hasty repair. Her left arm was in a medical cast. She had cuts and bruises healing on her face, but her eyes were clear and focused. This was someone who had made impossible decisions and would do it again without hesitation. "Commander Chen," Vekrin said formally, "I am here to document what happened for the Council records. The preliminary data suggests that your fleet achieved something that should have been mathematically impossible." Chen gestured to the tactical displays that still showed the battle progression. "We fought, we won. What else do you need to know?" "How?" Vekrin asked simply. "Council military doctrine would classify your approach as suicidal. You charged directly into the enemy formation. You accepted casualties that would cause any rational commander to retreat. You used tactics that maximize damage to both sides rather than minimizing losses. By every standard we have, you should have been destroyed in the first engagement." Chen looked at the display showing the battle. "Your standards calculate acceptable losses and strategic withdrawals. Human standards calculate how many people we can save if we refuse to quit. The Chromath were going to kill 43,000 civilians. We could prevent that if we were willing to pay the price. So we paid it. 8,000 lives, Vekrin said. That is the price you paid. Yes, and it was worth it. Every single one of those 8,000 knew what they were signing up for. They knew the odds. They came anyway because saving 43,000 innocents is worth the risk." Vekrin was silent for a moment. His species had been peaceful for 6 millennia. They had optimized warfare to minimize casualties and maximize efficiency. They had not fought a battle with 40% losses in recorded history. The concept was alien to him. "The Council wishes to offer humanity membership," Vekrin said finally. "Full status with all rights and responsibilities. There is one condition. You must adopt Council military doctrine and accept operational oversight. No more missions like this. No more acceptable casualty rates that other species find horrifying." Chen had been expecting this. Earth Command had sent guidance on how to respond. But seeing the actual offer made it real. Membership in the Galactic Council was everything humanity had been working towards since achieving faster-than-light travel. It meant access to technologies, trade routes, diplomatic protections, and a voice in galactic affairs. All they had to do was promise to never again do what they just did. Never again risk everything for strangers. Never again fight with the intensity that had saved the Varen. Never again be the species that refused to calculate the cost of doing the right thing. "I appreciate the offer," Chen said carefully, "but I need to transmit this to Earth Command. This decision is beyond my authority." The message went out that day. 3 days later, the response came back. Chen read it twice, then called Ambassador Tillith for a private meeting before the formal response. "You know what Earth is going to say," Chen told her. "We are going to decline the condition. We cannot promise to fight the way you want us to fight. When someone needs help, we do not calculate whether saving them is cost-effective. We just go." Tillith's colors flickered. "The Council cannot accept members who will not follow established protocols. The risks are too great. You could trigger conflicts we are not prepared for. You could create diplomatic incidents. You could start wars. We could," Chen agreed. "Or we could save lives that your protocols would write off as acceptable losses." Before Tillith could respond, Administrator Quellen entered the room. The Varen leader had requested to be present for this discussion. He looked at both of them and made a decision that would reshape the galaxy. "Ambassador Tillith, the Varen Union is withdrawing from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately. We will ally with humanity instead." The words fell like a bomb in the quiet room. Tillith's colors flashed through the spectrum of shock. "Administrator, you cannot be serious. The Council has protected your species for 3,000 years. We have provided technology, trade, security. And when we needed protection most, you calculated that saving us was too expensive," Quellen said quietly. "The humans did not calculate. They came, they fought, they bled for us. 8,000 of them died for my people. How can I remain in a council that would not do the same?" The formal council meeting happened 2 days later. Every species had observers present, watching through holographic projection as the drama played out. Earth's response was read formally by Commander Chen. "The United Earth Government appreciates the Council's recognition. We would be honored to work with the Council as equal partners. However, we must respectfully decline membership under the current conditions. We will not apologize for defending those who cannot defend themselves. We will not let bureaucracy slow us when lives are at stake. If that makes us too dangerous for the Council, we will stand alone." Quellen stood immediately. "The Varen Union withdraws from the Galactic Council. We will join humanity in the defense of innocent life. Then something unexpected happened. The Ragnari domain representative stood. The Ragnari also withdraw. 20 years ago, the Chromath attacked our outer colonies. The council said the risk of intervention was too great. We watched our people die while you calculated acceptable losses. We will not be part of that calculation anymore. The Solian fleet representative stood next. The Solian survivors joined this new alliance. We know what it means to be abandoned by those who prioritize calculations over lives. One by one, other species stood, not the major powers or the ancient civilizations, but younger species, frontier colonies. Those who had felt the Council's protection was more theoretical than practical. Within an hour, 43 species had declared their intention to join what was being called the Free Defense Initiative. It was a political earthquake. The Council had not faced mass withdrawal since its founding. The implications were staggering. Ambassador Tilith made a decision that her superiors would spend years debating. Perhaps there is another way. The Council need not be the only organization defending civilization. What if the Free Defense Initiative operated alongside the Council, not as members but as partners? We share intelligence, coordinate when possible, but you operate under your own doctrine. And when our operations conflict with Council policy? Chen asked. Then we argue about it afterward, Tilith said. Right now, 43,000 people are alive because humanity did not wait for permission. I would rather have humans making decisions I disagree with than watch civilizations die because we calculated they were not worth saving. The agreement was drafted over the following weeks. The Free Defense Initiative would be recognized as a legitimate organization. They would coordinate with the Council but operate independently. Any species could join if they accepted the core principle. When someone calls for help, you respond. Not when it is convenient. Not when the odds are favorable. When it is needed,